The two moons of Kethra rose slowly over the mountains. Their pale light fell upon the great stone city of the Vashka, where thousands of wolf-like creatures lived in dens carved from the living rock. It was a proud city, built by strong hands and sharp claws over many generations. But tonight, no pride could be found in the home of the pack leader. Tonight, there was only fear. Doran, the alpha of the northern Vashka, stood in his private chamber and watched his only daughter die. The Vashka were not a weak species. They stood 7 feet tall on their back legs. Their bodies were covered in thick gray and silver fur. Their golden eyes could see in complete darkness. Their claws could cut through metal. They had built cities, created art, and developed technology that allowed them to reach the stars. They had recently joined the Galactic Concord, the great alliance of alien species that ruled this part of the galaxy. But none of this mattered now. None of their strength could save a small cub from the sickness that burned inside her. Little Rima lay on a bed of soft furs. She was only 3 cycles old, still small enough to fit in her father's arms. Her silver fur, once bright and beautiful, was now wet with sweat. Her breathing was fast and shallow. Her small body shook with fever, and she had not opened her eyes in 2 days. Kira, Doran's mate, sat beside the bed. She had not moved from that spot in many hours. Her hand rested on Rima's forehead, feeling the terrible heat that came from within. Tears ran down her face, leaving wet lines in her dark fur. "She is getting worse," Kira whispered. "The fever is higher than before." Doran said nothing. What could he say? He was the Alpha, the leader of 12 territories. His word was law. His armies had never been defeated. But he could not fight this enemy. He could not command this sickness to leave his daughter's body. The wasting sickness had come to their world 3 months ago. No one knew where it started. Some said it came from a trading ship. Others said it had always been there, sleeping in the deep places, waiting to wake. It did not matter. What mattered was that it killed cubs. It killed them slowly, burning them from the inside with fever, making their organs fail one by one. 17 cubs had died already. 17 small bodies wrapped in white cloth and given to the fire. And now the sickness had come for Rima. The door opened, and Doran turned to see his old advisor Baran. The gray-furred elder walked slowly, his ears flat against his head. This was a sign of respect and submission, but also a sign that he brought difficult news. "Alpha," Baran said, "the Concord physicians have finished their examination. They have tried every medicine in their database. Nothing works." Doran felt something cold settle in his chest. Nothing? The sickness. It does not respond to their treatments. They say they have never seen anything like it. They say, Baran paused, and his voice became very soft. They say we should prepare ourselves. A growl rose in Doran's throat. Prepare ourselves? They want us to watch our children die and do nothing? They have done all they can, Alpha. The Concord medicine is the most advanced in the galaxy. If it cannot cure this sickness, then perhaps nothing can. Kira let out a sound of pain. She pulled her daughter close to her chest and held her tight. The small body in her arms felt so light, so fragile. Once Rima had run through these halls, laughing and playing. She had chased her tail in circles until she fell over dizzy. She had climbed onto her father's back and pretended to be a warrior riding into battle. Now she lay still, barely breathing, slipping away from them hour by hour. There must be something, Doran said. His voice was rough with emotion. Someone. Somewhere in this galaxy, there must be someone who can help. Baran was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again, very carefully. There is one possibility, Alpha, but I do not think you will like it. Tell me. 3 days ago, a small ship landed at the Eastern Trading Post. It was a human vessel. Doran's ears went back. Humans. He had heard about them, of course. Everyone in the Concord had heard about humans. They were a strange species from a planet called Earth. They were small and weak, with no claws, no fangs, no fur to protect them from the cold. They lived short lives and died easily. The other species in the Concord did not take them seriously. Some even laughed at them. But there were also other stories. Strange stories. Stories about how humans refused to accept death. Stories about how they would fight against impossible odds to save a single life. Stories about strange medicines and stranger methods that should not work but somehow did. What about the humans? Doran asked. There is a healer among them. A female. She's been working in the outer dens, treating the lowborn cubs that our own healers had given up on. Kira looked up. And Baran took a deep breath. She has saved 4 of them, Alpha. 4 cubs that were hours from death. I have seen them myself. They run and play as if the sickness never touched them. The room was silent. Doran and Kira looked at each other. In that look was a question and also an answer. How? Doran demanded. How did she do it? What medicine does she use? I do not know, Alpha. Her methods are unusual. The Concord physicians say her treatments make no sense. They say she uses plants and herbs instead of proper medicine. They call her practices primitive and unscientific. But the cubs lived. Yes, Alpha, the cubs lived. Dawn walked to the window and looked out at his city. Somewhere out there, in the poor dens of the outer districts, a human healer was doing the impossible. She was saving children that the great Galactic Concord had abandoned. His pride told him to refuse. The Vashka did not ask for help from lesser species. They did not beg. They did not show weakness. For thousands of years, they had solved their own problems with their own strength. But pride would not save his daughter. Pride would not stop the fever that burned in her small body. Pride would not bring back the light in her golden eyes. He turned to Baran. Send for the human healer. Bring her here, now. Kira closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to the old gods of her people. Perhaps they would listen. Perhaps, just this once, they would send help in a form that no one expected. Outside, the 2 moons continued their slow journey across the sky. And somewhere in the city, a small human woman with a worn leather bag was already preparing to answer a call she did not yet know was coming. Una Park was cleaning her medical tools when the soldiers came. She was in a small room, above a trading shop in the Eastern District. The room was not much, just 4 walls and a window, but it was dry and warm, and that was enough. She had slept in worse places during her 6 years of traveling between the stars. The door opened without warning, and 4 Vashka warriors stepped inside. They were huge, almost touching the ceiling with their pointed ears. Their golden eyes looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. One of them, the leader, stepped forward. You are the human healer? Una put down the tool she was cleaning and stood up. She barely reached the warrior's chest. Next to these massive wolf creatures, she looked like a child. But her eyes were calm, and her voice was steady. I am Dr. Una Park. How can I help you? You will come with us. The Alpha commands it. The Alpha? You mean the pack leader? Yes, his cub is sick. You will heal her. Una looked at the soldiers. She could see the tension in their bodies, the worry behind their hard expressions. These were not soldiers coming to arrest her. These were fathers and brothers and sons, terrified of a sickness they could not fight. I will need to bring my supplies, she said. The lead warrior nodded. Una picked up her leather bag, the one she had carried across 100 worlds. It was old and worn, the straps repaired many times. But inside were things more valuable than gold or technology. Inside were the medicines that had saved countless lives. The journey to the Alpha's home took them through the heart of the Vashka city. Yuna had been here for only a few days, but she was already beginning to understand these people. They were proud and strong, yes, but they also loved deeply. She had seen it in the outer dens, where parents held their dying children and begged her to help. She had seen it in their eyes when those children opened their eyes again. The Alpha's dwelling was carved into the side of a great mountain. It was beautiful in a harsh way, all sharp angles and smooth stone. Guards stood at every entrance, their weapons ready. But they moved aside quickly when they saw the soldiers bringing the human healer. Inside, the halls were wide and tall, built for creatures much larger than Yuna. Torches burned in holders on the walls, casting dancing shadows. The air smelled of smoke and fur and fear. Finally, they reached a door larger than the others. The soldiers stopped. "The Alpha is inside," the leader said. "Be respectful. Be helpful. And perhaps you will leave this place alive." Yuna smiled. It was not a smile of fear or nervousness. It was the smile of someone who had faced death many times and no longer feared it. "I am always helpful," she said. "It is my job." The door opened, and Yuna stepped inside. The room was large but felt small because of the tension that filled it. Two Vashka stood near a bed of furs. One was male, huge even by the standards of his species. His silver fur was marked with scars from many battles. His golden eyes burned with a fire that could have been anger or despair. This was the Alpha, the pack leader, the most powerful person on this world. The other was female, smaller, but no less impressive. Her fur was darker, almost black, and her eyes were red from crying. She held a small bundle in her arms, and Yuna knew at once that this was the sick cub. "You are the human healer." The Alpha's voice was deep and rough. It was not a question. "I am Dr. Yuna Park," she said. She did not bow or show fear. She had learned long ago that these proud species respected strength, not weakness. "I understand your daughter is ill. May I see her?" For a moment, the Alpha did not move. He was not used to being spoken to so directly, especially by someone so small. But then the female, his mate, stood up. "Please," she said. Her voice was broken. "Please, help her." She carried the small cub to where Yuna stood and gently placed her in the human's arms. Yuna looked down at the tiny creature. The cub could not have weighed more than a human child of 2 years. Her silver fur was wet with sweat, and her small chest rose and fell too quickly. Her eyes were closed, and her small face was twisted with pain. Yuna felt her heart tighten. No matter how many times she saw this, it never got easier. A sick child was a sick child, no matter what species they belonged to. She carried the cub to the bed and laid her down gently. Then she opened her bag and pulled out a small device, a scanner she had built herself over many years. It was not as fancy as the Concord medical equipment, but it told her what she needed to know. "How long has she been like this?" Yuna asked. 5 days, the mother answered. She stopped eating 3 days ago. The Concord doctors said her organs are starting to fail. Yuna nodded, reading the information on her scanner. She had seen these numbers before, on Kepler Station, on the colony worlds, and the outer dens of this very city. The pattern was always the same. "The Concord treatments are not working because they are wrong for her body," Yuna said. She looked up at the parents. "Your species is carbon-based, like humans. The Concord medicines are designed for silicon-based life forms. They are not helping her. They are fighting against her body." The Alpha's ears went forward. "What does that mean?" "It means the medicine is poison to her. It means we need to stop using it and try something different." "Different? What different?" "The Concord has the best medicine in the galaxy." Yuna reached into her bag and pulled out a small glass jar filled with dark liquid. She also pulled out a bundle of dried plants wrapped in cloth. "This is medicine from my world," she said. "From Earth. Some of these recipes are thousands of years old. My grandmother taught them to me when I was a little girl." The Alpha stared at the jar. "You want to give my daughter plants? Old recipes? I want to give your daughter a chance." Yuna met his eyes without fear. "The Concord medicine has failed. Their doctors have given up. But I have saved 4 cubs this week alone using these methods. I can save your daughter too, if you let me." The room was silent. The Alpha and his mate looked at each other. In that look was all the fear and hope and love that parents feel when their child is dying. They had no reason to trust this small human. They had every reason to send her away, but they also had no other choice. "Do it," the mother said finally. "Do whatever you have to do. Just save my daughter." Yuna nodded. She rolled up her sleeves and began to prepare her medicines. The night would be long, and the fight would be hard. But she had done this before. She had walked into dark places and brought light. She had stood against death, and tonight, she would do it again. The first night was the longest night of Doran's life. He had fought in many battles. He had stood against enemies that outnumbered him 10 to 1. He had felt the cold touch of death and pushed it away with his own 2 hands. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him to sit in a corner of his own room, helpless, watching a small human woman fight for his daughter's life. Yuna worked without stopping. Her hands moved with a speed and skill that surprised him. She boiled water over a small fire. She mixed herbs and powders together. She made drinks that filled the room with strange, earthy smells. Some were bitter, some were sweet. She gave them to Rima drop by drop, using a small tool that let the liquid slide down the cub's throat without choking her. "What is that?" Doran asked, pointing at a dark liquid Yuna was preparing. "This is made from the bark of a tree called willow," Yuna explained. Her voice was calm, patient. "On my world, we have used it for thousands of years to reduce fever and pain. The chemicals inside the bark tell the body to stop fighting itself. How can tree bark be medicine?" Yuna smiled. "On Earth, almost everything is medicine if you know how to use it. Plants, animals, minerals. The planet we come from is very dangerous. Everything wants to kill you. So humans learned to find cures in everything. We had to, or we would have died out long ago." She gave Rima another dose of the willow medicine. Then she prepared a different mixture, a golden powder that she mixed with warm water. "This is turmeric and ginger," she said. "They help fight infection. They also help the body repair itself. My grandmother used to make this for me when I was sick as a child." Kira, who had not left Rima's side, looked up. "Your grandmother? She was a healer too?" "She was the greatest healer I ever knew." Yuna's eyes grew soft with memory. "Her name was Suni. She lived in a small village in Korea. That is a country on my homeworld. She had no fancy technology, no expensive machines. Just her knowledge and her herbs in her hands. But she saved more lives than any hospital doctor I have ever met. And she taught you?" "She raised me after my parents died. From the time I was old enough to walk, she took me with her when she visited the sick. She showed me how to find the right plants, how to prepare them, how to read a body's signs and understand what it needed." Yuna paused. "She used to say that the body wants to heal itself. Our job is not to force healing. Our job is to help the body do what it already knows how to do." Doran thought about this. It was a strange idea, very different from the Vashka way. His people believed in strength, in force, in conquering problems through power. But perhaps there was wisdom in the human approach too. Perhaps sometimes the answer was not to fight harder, but to work with what was already there. The hours passed slowly. Yuna continued her work, never resting, never complaining. She checked Rima's temperature again and again. She adjusted her medicines. She changed the cool claws on the cub's forehead. She talked to Rima in a soft voice, telling her stories about Earth, about mountains and rivers and animals the cub had never seen. Around midnight, Rima began to shake. Her small body trembled as if she was cold, even though her fur was burning with fever. Kira cried out and reached for her, but Yuna held up a hand. "This is normal," she said. "The fever is breaking. Her body is fighting back. This is a good sign." "It does not look like a good sign," Doran growled. "I know, but trust me. I have seen this many times. When the body starts to fight, it can look worse before it looks better. We have to let her go through this." They waited. The shaking continued for almost an hour. Then, slowly, it began to stop. Rima's breathing, which had been fast and shallow, started to become deeper and slower. Her small face, which had been twisted with pain, began to relax. Yuna checked her scanner. For the first time that night, she smiled. "The fever is going down," she said. "Her organs are stabilizing. The infection is weakening." Kira let out a sob of relief. She pressed her hand against her daughter's forehead and felt the difference. The terrible heat was still there, but it was less than before. Her daughter was still sick, but she was no longer dying. "How?" Doran asked. His voice was rough with emotion. "How did you do this?" Yuna began packing away some of her supplies. "I did not do anything special. I just gave her body what it needed to heal itself. The willow bark reduced the fever so her organs stopped being damaged. The turmeric and ginger helped her blood fight the infection. Clean water kept her from drying out. Rest let her body use all its energy for healing. But the Concord doctors, they tried everything. Their machines, their advanced medicine. Their medicine was not made for her," Yuna said simply. "The Concord is very large. It has hundreds of species. The doctors are trained to treat as many of them as possible with the same methods. But every species is different. Every body is different. What heals one might harm another." She looked at Doran. "Your people are new to the Concord. The doctors do not fully understand your biology yet. They were doing their best, but their best was not good enough for this situation. And human medicine is better? Not better, just different." Yuna sat down in a chair, allowing herself a moment of rest. "Humans are strange, I know. We are weak and small, and we die easily. But we have been healers for a very long time. Our ancestors faced diseases that killed millions. They had no technology, no machines. All they had was observation and trial and error. Over thousands of years, they found what worked and passed it down to their children. That knowledge is still valid. It still works. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." The sun began to rise outside the window. Its light came slowly, painting the stone walls with gold and red. It was a new day, and for the first time in many days, it was a day with hope. Rima stirred. Her small eyes, golden like her father's, fluttered open. "Mother?" she whispered. Her voice was weak and dry, but it was the most beautiful sound her parents had ever heard. Kira gathered her daughter in her arms, crying and laughing at the same time. Doran knelt beside them, his great head bent down, his eyes closed. In that moment, he was not the alpha. He was not the pack leader. He was just a father, grateful beyond words that his child was alive. Yuna watched them quietly from her chair. She had seen this moment many times before, on many different worlds. It never got old. It never became routine. Every time a child opened their eyes and spoke to their parents again, it was a miracle. And Yuna Park had dedicated her life to making miracles happen. She would rest for a few hours. Then there was more work to do. Rima was not fully healed yet, and there were many other sick cubs in the city who still needed her help. But for now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. 3 weeks had passed since the night Yuna saved Rima's life. In those 3 weeks, everything had changed. Word of the human healers spread through the Vashka territories like fire in dry grass. At first, people did not believe it. How could a small, furless alien do what the great galactic Concord could not? How could plants and herbs defeat a sickness that had killed so many cubs? But the proof was impossible to ignore. Rima was alive and healthy. She ran through the halls of her father's home, laughing and playing, as if the sickness had never touched her. And she was not alone. In the outer dens, in the poor districts, in the villages far from the city, other cubs were recovering too. Cubs who had been given up for dead were now eating and playing and driving their parents. Crazy with energy. The Vashka healers came to Yuna with questions. At first, they were proud and suspicious. They had spent their whole lives studying medicine. They did not like being shown up by an outsider, especially a human. But as they watched her work, their pride gave way to curiosity, and their suspicion gave way to respect. "Show us," they said. "Teach us what you know." Yuna was happy to teach. She set up a small school in one of the healing houses near the center of the city. Every day, Vashka healers came to learn from her. She showed them how to find useful plants in their own forests. She taught them how to prepare medicines using simple tools. She explained the ideas behind each treatment so they would understand not just what to do, but why it worked. The most important thing is observation, she told them during one lesson. Before you treat a patient, you must understand them. Watch how they breathe. Feel their temperature. Look at their eyes, their skin, their movements. The body tells you what is wrong if you know how to listen. One young healer, a female named Tira, raised her hand. But we have machines that tell us these things. Scanners, monitors. Why do we need to learn to observe with our own senses? Machines are useful, Yuna agreed. I use them too. But machines can fail. Power can run out. Equipment can break. If you only know how to use machines, then you are helpless when the machines stop working. But if you learn to use your own senses, you can help people anywhere, in any situation, with nothing but your hands and your knowledge. The healers nodded. This made sense to them. The Vashka valued self-reliance. The idea of being able to heal without depending on technology appealed to their proud nature. Yuna also taught them about nutrition and hydration, about rest and recovery. These were simple things, but they were often forgotten in the rush to use complicated treatments. Many sicknesses can be prevented before they start, she explained. Clean water, good food, enough sleep, a clean environment. These are not exciting, but they are the foundation of health. The best healer is one who keeps people from getting sick in the first place. While Yuna taught the adults, she gained a small shadow who followed her everywhere. Rima had become completely attached to the human who saved her life. Wherever Yuna went, the small cub was sure to follow. She asked questions constantly, her golden eyes wide with curiosity. Why do you have no fur? Humans do not need fur because we learn to make clothing from other materials. What is Earth like? It is beautiful. There are mountains and oceans and forests and deserts. Many different kinds of animals live there. Some are very big. Some are very small. Are there any animals like us? There are animals called wolves. They look a little bit like you, but smaller. They live in packs, like your people do. Rima thought about this. Do humans have packs too? Yuna smiled. In a way. We call them families or friends or communities. We do not like to be alone. We always try to find others to belong with. Do you have a pack? A family? The question made Yuna quiet for a moment. She had left Earth many years ago. Her grandmother was dead. She had no husband, no children, no home to return to. She had spent so long traveling from world to world that she had forgotten what it felt like to belong somewhere. "I had a family once," she said finally. "Now I have my work. That is enough." Rima did not seem satisfied with this answer. She put her small paw on Yuna's hand. "You can be in our pack," she said seriously. "Father said you are very brave and very smart. Mother said you have a good heart. I think you would be a good pack member." Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly. "That is very kind, Rima. Thank you." News of Yuna's work eventually reached beyond the Vashka territories. Concord officials came to investigate. Medical researchers came to study her methods. Reporters came to tell her story that not everyone was pleased. Some Concord doctors were angry that their advanced medicine had been beaten by herbs and plants. They said Yuna's methods were unscientific. They said any success was just luck or coincidence or the natural course of the disease. They demanded that she stop teaching and submit to official review, but the Vashka refused to let them interfere. Doran himself spoke to the Concord representatives. "This human saved my daughter," he said. "She saved hundreds of our cubs. She did what your doctors could not do. I do not care about your official reviews or your scientific methods. Results are what matter, and she has given us results." The Concord officials backed down. They were not ready to start a conflict with the Vashka over one human healer. Meanwhile, Yuna continued her work. She trained more healers. She treated more patients. She documented everything she did, writing down her methods so others could learn from them even after she was gone. One evening, Doran came to visit her in the healing house. He watched her work for a while without speaking. Then he sat down across from her. "You have been here for 5 weeks," he said. "When do you plan to leave?" Yuna looked up from her notes. "I have not decided yet. There is still much work to do. There will always be more work. That is the nature of healing." Doran paused. "I have been watching you. You work without rest. You give everything to others and keep nothing for yourself. You have no home, no family, no pack. This is not a healthy way to live." "I am fine," Yuna said. "This is what I do. This is who I am." "Perhaps. But even the strongest warrior needs a place to rest. Even the greatest healer needs someone to care for them." Doran leaned forward. "Stay with us? Not as a visitor, not as a worker. Stay as a member of our pack." Yuna stared at him. "What? My daughter loves you. My maid respects you. My people need you. And I believe that you need us too, even if you do not admit it." Doran's golden eyes were warm. "You have traveled alone for too long. It is time to stop running and find a home." Yuna did not know what to say. She had spent so many years moving from place to place, helping people, and then leaving before she could get attached. It was easier that way. It hurt less when you did not belong anywhere. But looking at Doran, thinking about Rima and Kira and all the healers she had taught, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt like she belonged. "I will think about it," she said softly. Doran nodded and stood up. "That is all I ask." He left her alone with her thoughts. Outside, the 2 moons rose over the city, their light falling through the window like a blessing. And for the first time in many years, Yuna Park allowed herself to imagine a future that was not spent alone. 6 months had passed since Yuna first arrived on Kethra. In that time, everything had changed. The wasting sickness was gone. Not a single cub had died in the past 4 months. The Vashka healers, trained in Yuna's methods, had spread out across all 12 territories, bringing their new knowledge with them. What had started as a desperate attempt to save one dying child had become a medical revolution. But the changes went far beyond medicine. Una stood in the great council chamber of the Galactic Concord Station, looking out at representatives from a dozen different species. There were tall blue-skinned beings from water worlds. There were small, four-armed creatures covered in golden scales. There were floating clouds of light that communicated through color changes. And in the middle of them all was Doran, Alpha of the Vashka, standing beside the small human healer who had changed his world. The mortality rate for the Vashka wasting sickness has dropped to 0, Una reported. Her voice was calm and clear. We have also seen significant improvements in general health outcomes across all age groups. The training program we established has produced over 200 qualified healers, and more are being trained every month. The council members murmured among themselves. A tall creature with silver skin and 4 eyes leaned forward. "This is remarkable," it said. "The Concord has struggled with carbon-based species adaptation for decades. Our standard treatments simply do not work well for many species. And you solved this problem with plants?" "I solved it with knowledge," Una corrected gently. "With ancient knowledge that humans nearly lost in our rush toward technology. My ancestors faced diseases that killed millions. They had no machines, no advanced chemistry. All they had was observation, experimentation, and the wisdom passed down through generations. That knowledge still works. It has never stopped working. We just forgot to listen to it." Another council member spoke up. "What about the scientific basis for these treatments? How do we know they truly work? Perhaps the disease simply ran its course." Doran stepped forward. His voice filled the chamber. "I watched my daughter dying. I saw the best Concord doctors fail to save her. And I saw this human bring her back from death, using nothing but plants and water and patience. You can argue about science all you want. I saw the results with my own eyes. My daughter is alive because of this woman. Hundreds of her cubs are alive because of her. That is all the proof I need." The chamber was silent. No one wanted to argue with the pack leader of the Vashka. After the council session, Una and Doran walked together through the station's observation deck. Stars wheeled slowly past the great windows, countless points of light in the darkness of space. Each one might have worlds around it. Each world might have people who were sick, who were suffering, who needed help. "The council has approved funding for an expanded program," Una said. "They want me to train human healers and send them to other carbon-based worlds. There are at least 50 species in the Concord that have problems with standard treatments. We could help all of them." Doran nodded slowly. "This means you will have to travel again. Leave Kethra." "Leave us," Una smiled. "I will travel, yes. But I am not leaving." She pulled out a small device and showed him a document on its screen. "I have officially accepted the position of Chief Medical Advisor to the Vashka territories. Wherever I go, I will be representing your people. I will always come back." Doran's ears went forward in the Vashka expression of joy. But there was still something in his eyes, something he had not yet said. "There is one more thing," he said. "A matter that I have been thinking about for many weeks. A matter that concerns my people's oldest traditions." Una looked at him. "What is it?" "Among the Vashka, we have a ceremony. It is called the bonding of spirits. It is performed when someone has saved a life. The person who is saved and the one who saved them become connected. They become pack. It is the highest honor our people can give." He turned to face her fully. In the light of the stars, his silver fur seemed to glow. "You saved my daughter. You saved hundreds of our children. You have given our healers knowledge that will save thousands more. And beyond all that, you have shown my people that strength is not only about claws and fangs. It is also about patience, about wisdom, about caring for others without asking for anything in return. He placed his massive clawed hand gently on her shoulder. Unipark, healer from Earth, I ask you now before the stars and the spirits of my ancestors. Will you accept the bonding of spirits? Will you become pack? Will you become family? Una felt her eyes fill with tears. Real tears this time, not hidden or blinked away. She had spent so many years alone. She had traveled so far, helped so many people, and never allowed herself to belong anywhere. She had told herself it was easier that way, safer. But standing here, looking up at this fierce warrior who had opened his heart to her, she realized that she had been wrong. Humans were not meant to be alone. Neither were Vashka. Neither was anyone. I accept, she whispered. I am honored to be pack. I am honored to be family. Doran let out a sound that was somewhere between a howl and a laugh. He pulled her into an embrace, lifting her off her feet. Other Vashka on the station turned to look, and when they saw what was happening, they raised their voices in celebration. Later that day, a small ship departed from the Concord station, heading for Kethera. On board were 6 young human doctors, carefully selected from Earth's best medical schools. They had all volunteered for the program. They wanted to learn the old ways, the ways that Una's grandmother Suni had taught her. They wanted to carry that knowledge to new worlds and new peoples. Una watched them from the window of the observation deck. Rima stood beside her, holding her hand. Are those your students? Rima asked. They are. Will you teach them everything you know? Everything I can. And they will teach others. And those others will teach more. That is how knowledge stays alive. That is how we make the future better than the past. Rima thought about this. My father says you are the bravest human he has ever met. He says you face death like a warrior, but with medicine instead of weapons. Una smiled down at the cub, who had become like a daughter to her. Your father gives me too much credit. I am not brave. I am just stubborn. When I see something wrong, I cannot walk away from it. When I see someone hurting, I have to help. It is not bravery. It is just who I am. I think it is the same thing, Rima said wisely. The ship disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying its cargo of young healers toward their new home. Soon they would begin their training. Soon they would learn the wisdom of willow bark and ginger, of observation and patience, of caring for bodies instead of fighting them. And then they would spread out across the galaxy, bringing that wisdom to everyone who needed it. The universe was vast and often cruel. Species rose and fell. Empires crumbled. Even the stars would one day grow cold and die. There was so much darkness out there, so much pain and sickness and death. But there was also light. There were hands that healed and hearts that cared. There were people who refused to give up, who fought against the darkness, not with weapons, but with love. Una Park had learned this from her grandmother. She had proven it on 100 different worlds. And now she would teach it to a new generation of healers who would carry it forward into the future. The greatest power in the universe was not technology or strength or conquest. It was the stubborn, irrational, beautiful refusal to let something die when there was still a chance to save it. That was what it meant to be a healer. That was what it meant to be human. And now, thanks to one small woman with a worn leather bag and an open heart, it was what it meant to be pack. Una looked out at the stars one last time. Then she took Rima's hand and turned away from the window. Come on, she said. We have work to do. Together, they walked toward the future, and the future was bright.